Hi everybody, welcome to Module 7, Week 7. This is my second attempt at this recording because the first one came out without any volume. I'm not sure why. So, we're going to be working on Module 7 this week, Organizational Change and Organizational Culture, two of my favorite topics. I used to teach a whole course, undergraduate level and graduate level, on organizational change. So there is a lot to study and to know about creating change in organizations. It's really difficult, takes a lot of time, and it often does not succeed. Organizational culture is another important part of organizations, but it's difficult to see and understand. If you're part of an organization, you probably not see it or not notice it. But it's a way to understand the shared values and assumptions that are part of an organization. So if you're joining an organization, you want to learn about its organizational culture. In terms of specific assignments, so you see there in chapter 14, part of that is organizational structure and design that we talked about in the essentials class, so you can skip that part. I have given you some additional sources about servant leadership if you're interested in learning more about it. Okay, so let's take a look at the assignments. The first assignment is the discussion board, and here I'm going to ask you to describe an organization and the artifacts of culture. So that's what we can actually see. The physical structures, the language, the ceremonies and rituals, stories and legends that are told. Those are the external artifacts or the external dimensions or markers, and really what we want to understand is what are the shared values and assumptions that are part of that organization's culture. So identify an organization you're familiar with. Identify and describe some artifacts. So if you are a graduate of the Citadel, or if you've been on campus, you know that our culture is very strong. So the physical structure, the language, we've got our own language here, the rituals, the ring ceremony, stories and legends about the different companies and different barracks, and Mark Clark is a great leader. So not all organizations have that strong of a culture. So identify and describe some artifacts of whatever culture or organization you want to talk about, and then try to describe the shared values and assumptions that are part of that culture. So honor, duty, respect, the Citadel. So sometimes the values that are stated will match the actual enacted values, but not always. So here's a clip from an old David Letterman that kind of exaggerates the differences in culture. So for discussion boards, make your initial post by Wednesday and respond to 2 other posts by Sunday. The written assignment has you looking at a specific change that you would like to bring about, and using this force field analysis to try to identify, who's in favor of the change, the drivers, what are the obstacles to change, and that can be people, it can be tradition, it can be budget. So the forces, you can have all different kinds of forces on both sides. So you can use this file that I have, or you can just write them out. Sometimes that's easier. So identify a change you would like to see, identify the forces for and against, and then talk about how you'll go about shifting that equilibrium point. You either have to push harder on the drivers, or you have to get the restraining forces to back off to move that center line. Identify who will resist and why, and talk about how you will handle that resistance. And then finally is the journal, the last journal assignment. And this is kind of summing up the journal work so far. Characteristics of principled leaders are really all parts of servant leadership. So in your last journal, write about or answer the question, are you a servant leader? In your response, identify 3 of the characteristics of principled leadership. Provide examples and other evidence showing that you've demonstrated the principle. talk about whether or not you've worked for a certain servant leader and what that was like, and whether you'd like to become more of a servant leader in the future. So that's what we have for Module 7. The final paper assignment is posted, and I'll talk about that more next week, but let me know if you have any questions. Have a good week.